Inshallah, we will start within a few minutes. I just want to check, Dr. Azman, are you with us?
Yes.
Dr. Azman, the speaker, our speaker for today's session. Dr. Azman, okay, I think we may start and then Dr. Azman will join, inshallah, soon. I just also want to check, Dr. Akmal, are you available with us? Dr. Akmal? I think we may start first, and then maybe others will be joining too. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I'd like to welcome all of you in this virtual forum, and at the beginning, let us start to gain a barakah for this program. Let us start with the recitation of Kitab Surah Al-Fatiha. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for being with us for this important to the side virtual forum. Actually, in the pandemic affecting almost every country, all of us, all countries in the world, for Islamization centers in International Islamic University, Malaysia, take this as a part of its responsibility and organize a virtual forum on COVID-19 issues and challenges, Maqasid perspective. Many issues have suffered, affecting Muslim and non-Muslim alike. Most of these issues are before being experienced. Issues like the 5 daily and Friday congregational prayer, vaccine, loss of employment, multiple loss of loved ones, depression, and other physio-spiritual conditions, socio-economic problems, education, accessibility, dealing with this possible, like face mask, like gloves, and etc. All these things need a viable solution. For many, adapting to the new normal has not been easy. This problem requires Muslim scholars and experts of Maqasid Shariah for immediate as well as long-term solution. The Center for Islamization is glad to welcome 4 invited speakers in this virtual forum. Professor Dr. Walid Fikri Faris, Professor Dr. Muhammad Al-Tahir Al-Misawi, Associate Prof. Dr. Azman bin Muhammad Noor, Associate Prof. Dr. Abdul Razak Abdullah Hashi. And before we start, I just want to check if Dr. Akmal managed to join. Dr. Akmal, are you with us? Okay, it seems that maybe he has some problem of joining. Anyway, what we are going to do today, actually, we have 4 speakers. They are going to share their experience about the topics. And after we finish, we will have a discussion and Q&A session. So I would like to request from all audience to mute their mic and to ask a question in the chat area. We are going also to accept a few verbal questions at the end of the session. So you can unmute your mic and ask question at the end of the session. So without any further ado, we would like to start with Professor Dr. Walid Fikri Faris. And let me briefly introduce him. Professor Dr. Walid Faris is a professor in mechanical engineering in International Islamic University, Malaysia. He is an active researcher with 120 papers in scientific journals and 100 papers in conferences, plus 6 textbooks and monographics in his discipline. Beside his specialization, he is an active researcher in higher education policies and strategies in the Muslim world, and also studies about history of Islamic reform, spirituality, and the contribution of Muslims in science and technology. In this aspect, he published many books in Arabic on this matter, and also journals in Arabic in English. Maqasid inform overall perspective on epidemic in general. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Walid to share his experience for about 20 minutes. After that,
okay, thank you very much, Dr. Akram. I will share my slides so people can follow up what I am going to talk about. I hope everybody can see the slides.
Yes, Professor.
Okay.
Can you make it full screen?
Yeah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, thank you very much for inviting me for this interesting roundtable discussion. And for me, I will focus on some practical issues related to Maqasid Shariah and COVID-19 issues. And of course, the details will be with much more specialized colleagues, Professor Misawi, Dr. Prof. Azman, and Dr. Abdurazak. First, we would like to mention what are the issues that we are talking about. Since the pandemic took place early this year, and then the lockdown worldwide, we start to have many issues all over the world. And I'm just here putting a few of these issues, not all of them.
So I just want to mention that your camera is not on. So it's up to you to open or...
Yeah, I know, but I prefer people to focus on the presentation, and then maybe the camera will be on later. So the issues that we are talking about, these are some of the issues that we are facing currently. For this year, and it seems that it will continue to next year as well. There's an economical issues. Many economical system is practically almost collapsing, and countries are suffering, and also individuals are suffering. Healthcare systems is under pressure all over the world. It is not developed and developing world anymore. Is everybody under the healthcare system is under very high pressure, and we have seen many countries in Europe, the United States, are also facing the same problems that developing countries are facing. Governance issues also, how people react to the crisis, the information, the availability of information, and how a policy framework have been put in place or misplaced. So we have many issues related to this. Education has been interrupted for this year, almost the whole year. And people move to online and distance learning, which also created other serious issues related to cyber safety and cybersecurity issues and other things. Of course, because of the heavy use of the online system for many activities, conferences, education, meetings, and many things. So cyber safety and cybersecurity issues became one of the main issues also this year. And last but not least, in fact, is mental health issues that has been all over the world. It's not only in Muslim world, but also all over humanity, Muslim, non-Muslim world. There's a lot of issues related to it. So basically, COVID-19 is hitting almost every aspect of our life, almost every aspect of our life. I will just also start by putting a couple of slides related to the crisis management issues. IDC has put this, what they call it, crisis analytics components. Because before we talk about Maqasid Shariah, at the beginning of any activity, we need to have information, and we need to have a clear strategy with any crisis that we are facing. The Maqasid or any other approach will not solve problems which, if we don't have enough information and if we don't have proper management at the end of the day. So this is one of the things that was put by IDC related to crisis analytics capabilities. And they said these are the main components that we are looking at: power of predictive, so ability to get to prediction, so you can mitigate the problems. And we can see this in the pandemic. Some countries did have some early prediction, so they managed the situation better than other countries which were caught in surprise, if we can call it like this. They couldn't see the numbers, they couldn't see the expansion of the pandemic, so they have been in crisis, and they are still in crisis up to now. Also, the use of data, and this is also a very important aspect, a very important component of any crisis that we are facing, whether it is a pandemic or others. So we have many data, but at the end of the day, this data is useless as long as you cannot interpret it properly, you cannot use it properly. And consumption of analytics in an integrated way. So also this data need to be used in an integrated way, means looking in different angles through this data and try to use it to build your model that can manage the crisis that you are facing. So these are four things, four components, as IDC put it, related to any crisis management concerning pandemic, COVID-19, or any other management crisis that we are going through. Also, United Nations has put some systemic approach to crisis, a systemic approach to any crisis, which is quite interesting. They divided into three main phases. Phase number 1 is react, phase number 2 is reassess, phase number 3 is rebuild. And for phase number 1, when there is a crisis, in each phase we have three things. We have three components: crisis, consequences, and recovery. And in the phase 1, we will face the crisis will be overwhelming. The crisis will be overwhelming. This is why when you look at the figure or this circle in front of you, you'll find that the color which indicate crisis is actually overwhelming the whole figure. And then the consequences and recovery will be much more less. In this, we need to maintain access to critical public services and infrastructure. So this is phase 1. So you need to still have access to critical public services. People need to be having the healthcare, safety issues, and many other things. And in phase 2, where people go to reassess, then the crisis will recedes a bit, and then the consequences and the recovery will take a major role. And phase 3, this is where recovery will be almost dominating, and also the consequences and the crisis will almost recede completely. If we are going through this, if any country or any institution is going through these phases, can measure themselves against these phases, then we are doing well. If not, then we need to recheck and reassess our reaction and our also measures and the process that we have taken. Now coming to Maqasid Shariah. This is just to put things in perspective first. Okay, Maqasid Shariah has been used for hundreds of years by the great scholars of Islam as one of the tools for legal system, the fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence. And for the past maybe 50 or 60 years, people start to push Maqasid Shariah or the objectives of the Sharia, objective of the legal system, to push it further beyond the legal framework, What do we mean by pushing Maqasid Sharia beyond the legal framework? Means people start to use it in other activities which are not fiqh or Islamic jurisprudence. So people start to use it in governance, start to look into it, how it can be used as an index to the progress in some activities, education, healthcare, and other things, and also economics. So there is quite a wide interest, increasing day after day, to the use of Maqasid Sharia as a bigger framework, as a very big framework. And in fact, this is not only for Muslims, because Maqasid Sharia, as we will see, the main concepts agreed upon by humanity. So there's nothing here is very specific to Muslims rather than to the common good of the humanity. So with this increase in the interest of Maqasid Sharia, many people came in and tried to look into Maqasid Sharia, the objectives of the Sharia, as one of the tools that they can use for making a much more wider benefit to the public and also to the individual. And what I'm going to touch on in this short discussion is we use Maqasid Sharia as a tool of decision making, because when we are in a crisis, we need to have a clear tool for decision making. So can we use Maqasid Sharia as a tool of decision making in such crisis? And my suggestion, actually, it is a very effective tool if we can use it properly. It's a very effective tool if we can use it properly. And there are three things in Maqasid Sharia which can help us or can make it a very valid tool for decision making in general, whether on the individual level or on the community level. These three things are the priorities, process, and measures. And I will take 1 minute to explain each one of them in a while. When we talk about priorities, as we will see, Maqasid Sharia will help us to set what are the important issues, what are the main big picture that we need to look at. So this will help us to set our priorities right, because of course, to set any priority for any project, whether this project is related to a crisis management or related to other issues, if you need first to set your priorities right. And there are many tools people are using to set the priorities. So each tool will have its own criteria. For Maqasid Sharia, it provides us with a very good tool that has been tested for a long time and also will set our priorities in a right way. The second part also is a process. And also I will touch on this issue, and maybe our colleagues will touch in more details on this issue. Is Maqasid Sharia also have a certain process. So you need to check number one first, and then if it doesn't work, then you need to move to a second level. Then if it doesn't work, then you need to go to a third level. And sometimes you need to compromise between different priorities in the same time. So there is a process that people have been using as well in Maqasid Sharia. Measures, yes, there are some measures, but I think measures still need a lot of work to be enhanced if we are planning to use Maqasid Sharia as a tool in decision making. So let's go for what we know as Maqasid Sharia. Of course, Maqasid Sharia, and as I mentioned, our colleagues specializing in fiqh and usul fiqh will maybe go in details on the development of Maqasid Sharia. I didn't want to focus on this part. I just wanted to go to the direct application. There's three levels for Maqasid Sharia. The first level is what the legal system Islamic legal system will call necessities. And under these necessities, people talked about 5 main objectives in Sharia. Under the necessity, people talk about 5 main objectives in Sharia. So these 5 main objectives are preservation of the faith, preservation of self, preservation of intellect, preservation of wealth, and preservation of progeny. This is what everybody agreed upon currently. Of course, there is also a lot of development in this direction, and I think it will be touched by our colleague on this panel. But I will focus on the main ones. I'll focus on the main ones. And I'm trying to put it in a more modern term, governance term, and also that people might understand it properly within the scope of COVID-19 issue, and also within the scope of modern problems that we are facing. So when we look at faith, for example, when we look at faith, the objectives of the legal system, Islamic legal system, is we can say 3 main issues. Number 1 is to protect or preserve religion as an institution. So all religions need to be protected as an institution in practices, structure, hierarchy, development, and other things. And the second part is also preserving religion as a personal space. So each individual need to practice his or her religion freely, without any interruption or without any restriction on this one, because it's part of the human nature that we are religious somehow by nature. So whether people, even those who don't believe in religion, actually they are practicing a form of religion. So usually religion is a very important issue that we need to look at. And then the third aspect that may come under the preservation of the faith is spirituality. Spirituality in the sense your own relation with God, and how you look at it, how you interpret it, and this type of relation is very important to our achievement in life, because this is where the installation of hope will come. And also this, as we will see, also it's very important for mental health issues and other things. If we look at COVID-19 issues, this preservation of faith, we need to have the impact on it during the pandemic. I mentioned few items here. One of the items is places of worshiping. So the question whether to open the place of worship or to close it. The question is how long you can close the places of worship, and how the measures should be for opening the places of worship. These are all discussions that we have been hearing in many places, not only in the Muslim world, but also other countries which Islam is not the dominant religion there. So, but at the end of the day, from the Maqasid point of view, from the Sharia point of view, and as I mentioned, we use it as a common platform for common good for humanity. Places of worship cannot be closed for a long time. It's an essential part of the sustainability of the society. It's an essential part of the sustainability of the society. So the issue of closing places of worship in general, without any exceptions, this type of decision need to be looked at within the Maqasid framework. Of course, opening need to be according to certain rules and regulation. This is definitely agreed upon. But from Maqasid point of view, the closing of worshipping places is actually not serving for the public good. The same goes for religious celebration. Religious celebration is one of the form for all religions, in fact, to practice social bonding, to practice attachment to the religion that they are attached to, and other things. So again, this type of religious celebration, it cannot be, from Maqasid point of view, it cannot be just shut down completely, but people need to look into ways to keep it within the framework of the regulation that will not make this pandemic disastrous during this type of things. And definitely spiritual activity, we need to have a space for it somehow. This spiritual activity can be prayers, can be meditation, can be whatever, because sometimes even it's a very common phenomenon across religion. So some people, when they are in a very distressful situation, they will go to the places of worship. They will just go and sit down alone. They will go to a masjid, or they go to a church, or they go to a synagogue, whatever, or a temple, and just they want to sit down alone, and they feel that this is a sacred place that they can really connect with God in this place. So the spiritual activity also from Maqasid Sharia need to be opened, though regulated, of course, not to cause any trouble. If we look at the self-preservation of the self, so we are talking in the modern term in public safety and also personal safety and healthcare services. So public safety, you don't want, for our case now, you don't want to spread the pandemic. And also for the healthcare, you want to manage whatever cases that you have in a way that will not destroy the whole healthcare infrastructure. And personal safety is also, you don't want to hurt your loved ones or yourself. So this is a preservation of the faith, the self from perspective. Some of the points that I put on this issue related to the pandemic is availability of information. This needs to be available. Information needs to be available to public and to individual. Availability of services. So whenever you need a special service, whether for a treatment or anything, we need to have tools and ways to make the service accessible. And also the availability of protection. So in the case of pandemic, sanitizers are available, face masks are available, good ones, and all these type of things. And definitely vigilance among the public and also among the individuals. So this is one of the, or some of the issues that we can take it from preservation of the self in relation to the pandemic. If we look at the intellect, also the intellect in modern terms, preservation of the intellect, we talk about mental health. People need to be sane, because if the person will go into mental disorders, then there's no preservation of the intellect. So now we are going against the objective of this of Sharia. And then education needs to be continuously available, and mitigation of substances. Mitigation of substances means restriction of drugs and other things that will hurt your thinking capacity and other things. And one important issue that we can put also under preservation of intellect these days is the availability of information and avoidance of disinformation, because with the social media, we have a lot of disinformation available, and this disinformation will hurt your capacity to think, will hurt your capacity to think, and this will be against the objectives of Islamic legal system. Then what we need to do, what we need to look at from the Maqasid point of view is availability of true information. You need to build the trust with the public and also among the individuals that whatever information you are providing is true and is correct and is not manipulated. And the other thing is the continuation of education. Under no circumstances in any pandemic or any crisis, education should be disrupted. So yes, it can move from maybe face-to-face to online, or it can move from one form to another form, but education should not be interrupted at all. And also intervention in mental health issues. Many people are facing mental health issues. Awareness is not enough. Awareness is one thing, but intervention is much more important. So yes, we know that some people are facing some issues. We can give them lectures, we can give them some knowledge, but in the same time also we need to intervene properly in the right time before things will go out of hand. Concerning wealth, preservation of wealth, the Maqasid will talk about what we say as individual wealth, personal wealth, I mean, the community or public wealth, and the economy at large, how this will impact the issue of pandemic and COVID-19 within the current situation that we are looking at. We need to encourage social support, because many people, especially small jobs that were depending on face-to-face interaction, many actually in any community, not only in Malaysia, but in all other countries, the bottom line jobs is based on face-to-face interaction. Like people who are selling sandwiches, or people who are selling fruits, or people who are selling this type of things, many of them is based on face-to-face interaction, because this is a kind of a bargaining process and also selection process and other things. So those people are the most affected people, So the community in general need to encourage social support. Which is also an Islamic objective, not only zakah, but beyond zakah, charity and other things. The same thing also, many governments all over the world have been issuing relief of taxes, relief of some support, financial support to individuals who are under a certain income range, and all these type of things. So this is also goes along the Maqasid Sharia, goes along the preservation of wealth. And definitely we need to look into creative economical measures on a macroeconomic level. This is a different story. This is a very big story. Maybe Dr. Azman will talk about this type of issues. And where many people now talking about moving to social economy. And I will show one of the things that was also prepared by United Nations during the pandemic, in pushing people to move into social economy, because it has a lot of good aspect in this matter. The last one is the preservation of the progeny. So preservation of progeny, if we also put it in a kind of a modern framework, we are talking about maintaining and encouraging the marriage institution. What we mean by this, that we encourage people to get married and to get families, and also we try to preserve this institution by all the ways that is possible. Another thing is facilitate healthcare for mothers and children, facilitate basic education for children, and also protecting children from all sorts of abuse. So definitely this also will go under a pandemic. One of the very alarming reports that has been circulated for the past few months is that unfortunately kids are facing a lot of abuse due to the lockdown in many countries. And this shouldn't be, and according to Maqasid Sharia, it should be a way to protect and to help those kids who are facing abuse under the lockdown for any reason. Another issue also that we need to look at is what I call Maqasid Hierarchy. Maqasid Hierarchy means we start from individual and then family and then community. Let me give an example of this one. Preservation of the self. So you should, or Sharia will protect you from being, for example, killed or killed by criminals or anything like this. So there should be a government policy to help protecting individuals from being harmed. But in the same time, if there is a harm on your family and you try to protect your family and you will be harmed, then according to Islam, you will be rewarded for this, to protect your family. So the family will have a higher hierarchy in protection rather than you as an individual. If we go to a higher level, the people who are working in police, people who are working in armies, definitely they are facing harm, and some of them, they might lose their lives. And here the Sharia will say, yes, they are the preservation of the individual life and the preservation of the community safety. So the priority is to the community safety. The priority is to the community safety. So this is what we call Maqasid hierarchy, and this is a very interesting thing that we need to look at, and maybe some of our colleagues will touch. I'm finishing very quickly now because I think my time is out. This is what I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the United Nations encouragement of the social economy during the pandemic. Now we are looking into economic activities should be organized differently, not like before. And then at the same time, also you need to address primary societal needs, which are social concerns and environmental concerns. Then the only solution for this is what people call now as a social economy, because the social economy will have many interesting outcomes related to the association, cooperation, and also foundation and mutual organization and other things. So this is something that we need to look at, and this in fact goes along with Maqasid Sharia from Islamic perspective. The other thing also that people are putting, United Nations and many other researchers, is the issue of mental health, which is becoming very, very clear under the lockdown all over the world and under the pandemic. Here, people are putting many solutions, but I will look into one that I just mentioned from one or two from Maqasid point of view. Number one is installation of hope. Without believing in something, you will not have hope. Without believing in something, you will not have hope. So you should believe in God, you should believe in your religion, and then you can have hope that you will survive, you will go through whatever you're facing. Other things are prayers and many other things that people are mentioning here, online activities, reading, and other things. But this is also, again, one of the things that will confirm this one. The last one that is also one of the forms that was put by Brookings Institute about policy framework for mitigating the impact of COVID-19, which again goes in line with the Maqasid approach, that whatever policy you are making need to have a targeted outcome. Whatever policy you are making need to have a targeted outcome. So the targeted outcome, according to Brookings, and also goes along with the Maqasid, is flattening the human suffering curve, flattening the recession curve, and flattening the bankruptcy curve. And all institutions or governments or organization need to look into this framework, and as I mentioned, using also Maqasid Sharia as part of the decision-making and policy framework that will help on this aspect. I hope I didn't exceed my time. Thank you very much. I was trying to run fast over these ideas, and hopefully it is useful somehow. And I think it will be complemented and enriched by the other discussion of our colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this too many input from you for sharing useful information. Prof Walid, we will come back to you soon, inshallah. And I would like to remind all audience, if you have any question, please write the question in the chat area. So at the end of the session, inshallah, we are going to ask the panelists about your questions. So now we are going to move to the second speakers, and we would like to welcome Prof. Muhammad Al-Nisawi. And let me briefly introduce Prof. Al-Tahir Al-Nisawi. He's a professor at the College of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, International Islamic University, Malaysia, in which has been working since 1994. He obtained a PhD from the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religions in 2004, and his dissertation was about Maqasid al-Sharia and the foundation of a human society. He has presented many papers in conferences, seminars, published many articles and book chapters, book reviews, and more than 10 books. His books include, among others, A Muslim Theory of a Human Society, and Quranic phenomenon, another book about question of ideas in the Muslim world, another one about Maqasid Sharia, and many others. Prof. Muhammad Al-Tahir Musawi served as an editor for the journals of Islamiyat al-Marifa and the Journal of At-Tajdeed, and he is a member of the advisory board for a number of journals inside and outside Malaysia. He also served as a member of Sharia committee for some Islamic finance institution. His research interests include of Islamic legal theory, Maqasid Sharia, values and social change, Islamic movement and reform, modernity and globalization. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Prof. Muhammad Al-Tahir Musawi to unmute his mic and start his presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. Prof, we cannot hear you. Sorry, Prof. Prof. Tahir, we cannot hear you. Yeah, now, okay, please. No,
okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Cannot. Can or cannot?
Can, yes, can.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum and good day for everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Akram, for having us on this important forum. If you allow me, I will just make a suggestion because it's already 10 to 12 and we are already 3 speakers yet to make their submissions, and I don't think that 1 hour is going to be enough, so maybe you consider extending the time so that everybody can make their submissions, and then we can have some discussions and responses. Of course, Prof. Walid has already made a very important and extensive submission about the issues. I will just try to invite you to think with me and to reflect on certain issues, not just at this moment, but for the future also. We are living in difficult times and challenging times. People have been talking about many posts, post-reason, post-modernity, post-humanity. Now we are talking about post-COVID-19. And let me say that actually epidemics and pandemics are not new in human history. There have been a lot of them throughout the ages. And many losses in terms of human losses as well as economic losses and social losses have taken place throughout human history. And but the issue is that now the pace and the spread of such things are faster and more global, take a more global dimension than it used to be before. In terms of locality, previous epidemics, including what is known as the Black Death, the yellow fever, cholera, all these, they used to be limited to certain geographical areas or to certain human societies. But now, because of the process of globalization, the past movement of things and people, everything can go global. And this COVID-19, pandemic of COVID-19 gives us a very good example about how now the destiny of mankind and how now the interconnection of people's problems have become so complex, so interconnected, that you cannot think that you are safe or you cannot be affected by something happening somewhere in a remote corner of the globe. So that's the first lesson, that not only good things go global, but also bad things. Calamities can go global very easily. And this COVID-19 is one of the manifestations of this interconnectedness of the destiny of humankind through in our time and of course in the future. So talking about post-COVID-19, it's difficult to say, and experts and medical doctors and scientific researchers are not able to say that. Only God knows what will be the face of the world if this pandemic comes to an end. But let us try to reflect on the issue. And I am alarmed when, since this pandemic started, trying to teach myself, to educate myself on the literature, on the issues related to pandemics. And it's unfortunate to say that our scientific communities in the Muslim world, at least as far as the Arabic language is concerned, our so many universities, our so many experts in the different fields of knowledge in medicine and healthcare and health sciences, in sociology and anthropology, in economics, there is a very, very scarce amount of literature on these issues, as if these things did not happen in the history of Muslim countries, even in the recent past, not the very remote past. And even those that happened in Europe in the early 20th century, actually, they extended and they affected parts of the Muslim world. So when I was trying to educate myself, and this is, it tells a lot about the scientific, the status of our scientific communities in the different disciplines. So you can actually count the works done on such things, either from historical point of view or from medical point of view or from social cultural point of view. It's very, very, very rare. While at the same time, I discovered that many universities in the West, especially in the US, the UK, and other Western universities, they don't only write about pandemics and epidemics, they teach courses. There are courses for years that have been taught, whether in faculties of medicine and departments of medicine and health sciences, or in sociology and anthropology and social studies. So this is a real problem, because if you don't have literature, you don't have a store from history, how are you going to face what is going to happen? How can you really try to make your expectations or make your futuristic vision about things? That's a really very alarming matter. The only works I found, that some edited works by our classical scholars that have been published and commented upon in very limited manner, but I have not found really sound studies, sound research dealing with the different aspects of such things, as if our societies, whether in history in the past or at the present, are immune from such happenings. I think that's tells a lot that we are not really intellectually and academically well equipped to face such things, to face such epidemics. Of course, there are many different angles from which you can look at the epidemics, from the medical and health care point of view, from the scientific research also, those people beyond medicine, beyond drugs, those who are doing engineering, biotechnical research. And if we want to really look to the matter from all these dimensions, I'm personally very much convinced that it's not just the business of people who have some knowledge on Maqasid Sharia, because such phenomena are interconnected, are complex in the way they happen, in their implications, in their causes. It's not only, say, bacterial causes or scientific natural causes. There are human implications done there, human interference, and the way research is being done. And of course, people are making some claims that it's not just bio error, but also there is bioterror, because there are evil minds among human beings who are trying to manipulate science and scientific discoveries and scientific research for some malign or devilish purposes. So Maqasid al-Sharia, if we want to bring it in, and I don't think it should be brought in as a as a means of justification to justify what we want to do or what we have already been doing. I think that should not be the case. Maqasid al-Sharia should give us a framework of how to think this holistic approach, because the things that have been mentioned by Prof. Walid, the 5 essentials or universal necessities agreed upon by almost all jurists from different schools, actually they just summarize in a very dense manner the first, the cardinal and the pillars of a human existence. Human existence will not be complete and holistic if it lacks the spiritual dimension, the intellectual dimension, the physical dimension, the economic dimension, and then the social dimension. Actually, it's not, the progeny is not just a matter of having the family and marriage, etc. It's about the continuation and survival of the human species itself. So Maqasid al-Sharia should provide us with a framework of how to look holistically at all these interconnected. You cannot deal with the with the protection of life physically, or the selection of the intellect from the pedagogical point of view, psychological point of view, of the economic side, because economics is only a tool to satisfy the needs of human beings. So we have to think in that way. It's a holistic, comprehensive approach, and this approach cannot be done by jurists or people who happen to be experts, quote, in Maqasid al-Sharia or Usul al-Fiqh or in Islamic jurisprudence, but it requires a kind of transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary work and research. Different people from different backgrounds, from different disciplines have to come together in the Islamic frame. I am talking here about addressing, of course, our fellow Muslims, where they are medical doctors, where they are physicists, where they are in sociology, whether they are in economics, whatever. I think if we really aspire to provide something new, to develop something new, at least open a new horizon for mankind, for our societies, for our ummah, and for mankind, on how to deal comprehensively with these issues, I think one crucial area is that our research is unfortunately and very sadly not only poor, but it is below the poverty line, if I may use that term. So I think we need to develop research teams, interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, that we can address from the Maqas point of view. It's not just a matter of how to make our priorities and set our priorities, how to provide some solution, juristic solutions, how to deal whether you pray at the mosque or you pray at home. But I think there are more radical issues, more important issues, and this requires to reflect about human responsibility. I can remember very well a very interesting statement made by Einstein when he saw the results of his discoveries, his scientific discoveries about the atomic bomb when it was used and employed during the Second World War in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He made a very important, and he came with a set of articles about religion and science. And he was saying that science without religion is blind, and religion without science is actually unable to Yale, or what the term is, that it is incapable of doing things. So if Muslims, through the framework of Maqasid Sharia, of course, there has been a lot of talk about Maqasid Sharia, sometimes to the level of abuse and misuse. But I think one important lesson that this pandemic, which has actually decapitated, I use that term, the whole mankind. Everybody in everywhere have been affected, and at all the levels of a human existence. So this perhaps can be an opportunity to reflect more fundamentally and more radically on the human responsibility, human accountability, because it's not only human lives are affected. Of course, it has been a long time that the environment has been degrading, has been worsening, and whatever the side effects or many research, many things. So I think perhaps if we can come up, and perhaps centuries can take the lead and take initiative on that, can come with a research project that brings together people from different backgrounds on how to deal not just with COVID-19, which is now facing us, but with such issues that COVID-19 only brought them to our awareness. I think if we can get out from this forum with a formulation of such research projects for the future, I think we may be able to make some tangible contribution, not only to face our problems and challenges as Muslims and Muslim societies, but also to offer something to the rest of the world. I think that my reflections, which I call everybody to think about and to perhaps raise issues that have in connection to this, it's not just a matter of providing ready-made statements or solutions, but I think we need to explore more problems and think on how to really develop our scientific endeavor, because our scientific endeavor, unfortunately, seems to be very low. And if you don't have the knowledge and the conceptual framework for such things, I don't think we can move anyway. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof, for this reflection. Too many points and suggestions raised just now. So inshallah, we will think about these points, and also we will come back to you, inshallah, during the Q&A session for more discussion. So now I'd like to invite Associate Prof. Dr. Abdul Razak Hashi to share his experience about this topic And let me briefly introduce Dr. Abdul Razak Hashi obtained his bachelor, master, and PhD from International Islamic University, Malaysia, in theology and comparative religion. Since 2008, he started working at Kuliah of Science in the Kuantan campus as an assistant professor, apart from being chairperson, co-chairperson, and as well as speakers in many international conferences and events in Turkey, Malaysia, Australia, United States, and other places. Since 2012, he has been a member of reviewers in Qatar National Research Fund in Foundation of Qatar. And in 2014, he was appointed as the editor of the Kuliah of Science academic journal, Revelation and Science. Presently, Dr. Hashi is an associate professor at the Department of Biotechnology at Kuliah of Science and a coordinator for multidisciplinary academic postgraduate program, as well as he is the deputy director of Center for Islamization in Kuantan campus. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Abdul Razak Hashi to start his presentation. Thank you very much.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Akram, my good friend and colleague, my friends as well, Professor Walid, Professor Tahir Misawi, and Professor Azman, colleagues, friends. Salamullahi alaikum wa rahmatuhu wa barakatuh from Kuantan, on the other side of the river. Well, I think very quick, as noted, and I think already mentioned by Prof. Tahir, I think we have bit time pressure. So yeah, reflection has to be now, stated with a quick manner in order to save some time for Q&A. Inshallah, I will do the same of what he did. He started a new way of, conducting it. Well, while I was listening to the discussions, presented, or the beautiful discussions presented by Prof. Walid and Prof. Tahir, I was thinking like, the topic has been beautifully covered, from different aspects. So then I was thinking like, this is the challenge of being the third or fourth speaker always, because of course, the beginning, the speakers in the early session normally cover, especially when you are speaking after Prof. Walid and Prof. Tahir. It's not easy to, find out a place to fit. But well, I think they have already covered, the practical and also the, the conceptual aspect of the topic, which I don't need, I think, to touch. So I'm trying to find out a place where should I fit in, or where should I come in, or which area should I address. I think we all know, as Prof. Tahir was mentioning, that now addressing the issue of Maqasid Shariah itself from conceptual and historical aspect, I think that one we don't have time now. And as also Prof. Walid was mentioning, that we need to understand the concept of Maqasid Shariah itself, and its applications to cope with the the challenges that we are having now, especially in relation to the concept of the COVID-19, as the title indicates, or the title reflects. So, well, of course, when we are talking about Maqasid Sharia, I would like to share with my friends and colleagues there, if you just to remind you, as you can see from the title, I hope you can see my PowerPoint slide. As you can see from there, if you talk to the Muslim scholars of jurisprudence or Muslim scholars of fiqh and usul al-fiqh, normally when they study Maqasid Sharia and al-masalih, the concept of masalih, they give a very concise statement or qa'idah or maxim, which normally reflects or summarizes the Maqasid Sharia itself, which is, according to them, jalbul masalih and dar'ul mafasid. I hope the colleagues, on the other side can correct me if I'm not mistaken. If I'm mistaken. So the aim, if you can see here, the aim of the Sharia, because it comes from milladun hakim and alim, the aim of the Sharia, and rahmatan lil alamin, as we will see later on, is according to the Muslim, jurists, is realization of good and prevention of harm. You can put it in that way. Then today, surely when you see the challenges that we have from COVID-19, surely, COVID-19 come with harm. Whether that harm is in the level of, what do you call, healthy aspect, risking the life of millions, and already taking out, the life already. Some of the, colleagues have already lost their beloved ones as a result of COVID-19. So all the harm of, destroying the social fabrics and the social bonding, as mentioned by Prof. Walid and Prof. Tahir beautifully, that is also another aspect of, the harm that we can see. Or it could be in the level of, the economic damage, the financial, difficulties that we're having as a result of COVID-19. So surely then the Sharia, of course, has a role here. And the Sharia, generally, if we, take the general concept of the Sharia, or al-mafhum al-aam of the Sharia, the Sharia as, the total teachings of Islam, then of course, Islam, as a revealed, religion that guides the mind, hudan, lil muttaqin, it includes teachings that guide the mind to always, do good things and prevent harm. Put in that way, is very concise. So, well, Islam, whether it's in the level of theology and belief systems, whether it's in the governing system and value, the value and governing system like Sharia, Akhlaq, Qanun, manners, and so forth, whether in the level of developing proper knowledge in terms of epistemology and ma'rifah, the Islamic teachings cover holistically all aspects of life, including how to deal with calamities and challenges, that are arising from here and there, such as the challenges that we are now currently having from, the COVID-19. And therefore, now we want to understand, because we are in this kind of situation, we are having these challenges, we want to understand how the Sharia guides the mind, or how the Sharia guides us to deal with the challenges or the issues that are coming from COVID-19 in terms of, managing the cases, in terms of preventing, in terms of, conducting research, scientific research to, find out or develop maybe a vaccine or medication and so forth. So what I will do is, I will quickly go through, maybe I will adopt some unconventional, ways to remind everyone, because I think the other aspects have already been covered by these two professors. I think what I will do is I will quickly remind everyone what the Maqasid Sharia is all about. Then we see where the COVID-19 issues fit. That is what I will do. I will arrange in that way. So as a reminder, not as a teaching, as a reminder, let us remember what the Sharia, Maqasid Sharia is all about. And of course, when we talk about what the Maqasid Sharia is all about, of course, when we talk about the conceptual level, the discussions that are, related to, who developed it first, the concept of maslaha, the interplay between, concept of illah and maslaha, that one is, we leave it to, the usul al-fiqh and fiqh to discuss. But this is just a quick reminder. When the ulama talk about the concept of Maqasid Sharia, of course, they are referring to the related Quranic ayah that I have stated here as a reminder, of course, because we want to start from the Quran, then move on and get solutions, to the problem that we are raising. So, of course, as you can see here, for the audience, I quoted for you here related Quranic ayat as a reference, as a reading, and as you can see there, I make a comment. Some verses, some related verses from the Noble Quran for reflection in relation to the topic that we are addressing. So the Quranic ayah that I quoted for you here, I quoted the surah and the verse. Of course, mentioning the ayat, one by one may take longer time, and then probably Dr. Akram will not be happy with that. So I summarize it for you. Later on, maybe after this session or maybe during the session, you can check, you can make reference to the Quran, to the, you know, to check those ayat and make maybe, you know, draw some lessons, you know, that may be helpful for you to understand the topic that we are, you know, or maybe, you know, develop further ideas from there. So as you can see, when the ulama talk about Maqasid Shariah, of course, they are referring to, you know, the Quranic ayat, like for example, chapter 57, verse number 27, that is Surah Al-Hadid, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you know, the whole Sharia, you know, he sent prophets and messengers, لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, you know, the key word is there, you know, لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, in order for people to establish justice and fairness. And that is very important. In chapter 21, Surah Al-Anbiya, verse number 107, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that the whole mission of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you know, including Aqidah, Akhlaq, Sharia, you know, Qanun, and so forth, is what? To be, you know, mercy, you know, rahmatan lil alameen. Inna arsalnaka, wama arsalnaka, sorry, wama arsalnaka illa rahmatan lil alameen. We send you to mankind as a mercy to everyone. Then down there you have chapter 5, verse number 6, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained, you know, the process and the, you know, what do you call, the preparation for salat. Salat, which is basically, you know, spiritual connection or spiritual connectivity. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end mentions, after explaining details, you know, the rules related of how to perform, how to prepare for salat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يريد الله ولكن يريد ليطهركم. That is the key word. The whole ayah, you can read it later on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to purify you. See, that's the message. So purification here in the form of physical purification, being clean and hygiene, or in the form of performing salat. And by salat, having salat here, you have what? Spiritual and intellectual connection to Almighty Allah subhanahu. So you are spiritually connected. Salat itself means what? Communication, you know, or prayer, of course, if you want to literally translate. So based on this ayat and some other, you know, related ayat in the Quran, the ulama said, well, we have to understand the Quran, what? In a, what do you call? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it for reason. Therefore, we have to identify what are the reasons, what is the aim, what is the objective, what is the maqsad. Why? Because as you can see from this ayat, the revelation of the Quran has been what? Justified by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mention it there. Although concept of illah, whether, you know, af'alullah subhanahu wa ta'ala mu'allala or ghayr mu'allala, that is a different discussion. We are not referring to that point now. Then the ulama, you know, go through the Quran and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they identify, at least as mentioned by Prof. Walid beautifully and, you know, clearly, 5 major essentials, or 5 major aims, or 5 essentials. And as you can see here, for example, life-saving, and then you can identify, you can relate, you know, the Quranic ayat. For example, you can read chapter 5, verse number 32, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Whoever saved his life as if you have saved everyone's life. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, Surah Al-Nisa. And then you have Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Do not destroy yourself by yourself. Right? Then the preservation of intellect. And then there is where you have preservation of intellect from physical and chemical harms, like wine and alcohol and so forth, or from spiritual harms, whereby you, for example, believe wrong beliefs or misconceptions or myths or khurafat, you know, like al-azlam wal-ansab and so forth. So this is again another important element. Then you have preservation of religion, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, not only, you know, the Sharia not only, you know, what do you call, protects the right to have, to believe the religion of your choice, but also the Sharia, you know, protects practicing the religion of your choice as well. So now the what do you call, the challenge that you have with COVID-19 is how to practice religion. We will see, you know, what do you call, freely, especially in the form of congregations, in the form of, you know, pilgrimage. We will see later on. Huh? So you have Surah Al-Baqarah, what do you call, Surah Al-Kahf, and then you have Surah, what do you call, Baqarah, La ikraha fi din, and then you have Surah, what do you call, Yunus, and so forth. These ayat are not for tafsir, these ayat are for reflection, for you to, you know, to take some lessons maybe, or when the ulama talk about the maqasid, what do they mean? Then you have preservation of honor, and as beautifully explained by both professors, you have the the Sharia that is protecting the honor, not only the honor and dignity, but also the posterior generations, the healthy of the community and the continuation of human progeny as well. So you have the Quranic ayat related on that. I listed down for you, chapter 17, verse number 32, and the other related ayat as well. So preservation of private and public properties again is another essential element of the Maqasid Sharia, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited all forms of corrupting wealthy in terms of stealing, in terms of bribery, in terms of robbing and so forth. So لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل, is what do you call it? Straightforward teaching, which the Sharia commends. Or ولا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل in Surah Al-Baqarah. So all forms of corrupting the wealthy management and wealthy earning is actually prohibited. Then you have concession based, what do you call aims, that is al-darurat or extraordinary conditions when we have challenges like, for example, pandemics of let us say COVID-19. Well, there are always the rules are established, the principles are established, but when it comes to ahwalul mukallafin, then we need to have what what do you call, the ulama call generally rukhas. Then you have these ayat illa ma durirtum, or you have other ayat that are telling us and then you have complementary aims, which is mainly what do you call, purification. Finally, this is my last slide. Based on what we have seen now, the first slide, this is my ending point. Based on the what our scholars also explained it just now. Here we have some reflections, as Professor Misawi mentioned as well. So as you can see here down there, we have 5 essentials. As you can see, if we draw Maqasid Sharia as a pyramid, although the ulama normally don't do that, but I just wanted it to clarify. So the bottom line, you have the 5 major maqasid, the 5 major aims. So let us say preservation of life. Then of course, during the COVID-19, we are now concerned about, number 1, because Sharia tells us to preserve life. Therefore, are these vaccines that are now being developed safe? See, the safety of life. Therefore, safety of the vaccines. Well, on one hand, the Quran tells you, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. On the other hand, the Quran, Sharia tells you, as mentioned in the prophetic hadith, tadawu ibadallah, in the form of seeking medications or in the form of developing medical science. So here we have what? Whether the vaccines that we are developing now are safe or otherwise. This is very important. And then another issue is also a medical treatment as well. Whether they are effective, whether they are related. So we are concerned about that. So that is very important. So in order to fulfill that aim, then that has to be fulfilled and conformed by our healthcare professionals. Number 2, you have preservation of religion. And then of course, as mentioned beautifully by Prof. Walid, here we have what? Practicing religion in congregations, for example, pilgrimage and so forth. Now those connections are now being lost because of COVID-19. So how to bring back the what do you call, the true practices of religion, because that is one of the basic aims of the Sharia. And then you have on the other side preservation of honor and posterior generation. Then the issues that we have there include, like for example, nowadays there are a lot of what do you call, media reports that are talking that the current developed vaccines that we have may lead to some sort of infertility, especially among the female. This is not conforming. Up to now, I am not claiming, right? But I have read those, what do you call, media reports that are now warning that some vaccines, not all, may lead for long-term what do you call, effect of reproduction, especially for female. So is it true? Yeah, we are concerned about that, if that is true. So we need to check and clarify. Posterior generations, are we sure that these vaccines will not cause some kind of like disabilities, abnormalities, for the newly born kids? This is also another issue that we are concerned about. Mother's health, yes, of course, we are also concerned about that, yes, in the long run. Also, not only the mother's health, the father's health as well. Why? Because as Professor Bisawi mentioned also, not only that Islam is concerned about the honor and dignity of the individual, but also the whole what you call set of a human progeny has to be protected. Intellect, yeah, the issue of anxiety, what you call panic, despair, depression, hopelessness. These are also new challenges that we need to deal with, as mentioned by Professor Walid. And this is what we need to tackle. Why? Because as long as they're disturbing that part of, what you call maqasid, then we have to fulfill that aspect. Preservation of public and private, then we are worried now. The implications of COVID-19, of course, includes job security, income generation, collapse of traditional economic systems, international trade, for example, is now at the verge of collapse. Investment, for example, what do you call direct investment from international or local is also, under huge, what do you call pressure. Tourism is almost collapsing. What the tourism is, later on we can talk about it. So these are the issues that, COVID-19 brought in, which, are contradicting with the concept of what do you call preservation of. Then when it comes to concessions, then we are talking about, prioritization, as mentioned by speakers before me, of medical attention, for example, prioritization. Who should be prioritized, for example? Frontliners first, medical doctors, drug formation as well has to be prioritized as well. The issues of non-halal substance as well. Nowadays we are hearing that some of the vaccines have some kind of porcine, in it. So that is also another issue that is concerned in relation to, well, if we do not have any other, if we do not have halal, substance to develop drug, should we accept the non-halal items to be the source of, the vaccines? That is also one of the issues that the ulama need to address. The issue of distribution of vaccines and also medication, and the issue of justice. Who comes first? Then finally, we have beautification, and I think this topic also has already been addressed, and this is very much related to the concept of, the concept of, in terms of disseminating the right information, the right instruction, on the prevention, of prevention and handling COVID-19. So these are the topics that I would like, our audience to reflect, and I would like to end here. I just complimented, by the way, in a way that now you have the Quranic ayat, already being listed there. So reading those Quranic ayat telling you to do and to handle, Christ's life in general, and also to handle the crisis of pandemics like, COVID-19. Therefore, now the question is open. How should we benefit from the resources that we have, the Hadiyur Rabbani, and deal with these challenges that are disturbing not only Muslims, but everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this presentation. Useful information we gain from your presentation, and some reflections about verses as well. So we will come back to you soon, inshallah, Doctor. Let us now move to the fourth presenters of today. But before that, I just would like to remind everyone here to sign for attendance. The attendance link is available in the chat area, as well as you can ask any question in the chat area. We're going to discuss these questions after the end of the session. So now I'd like to invite Associate Prof. Dr. Azman bin Muhammad Noor. Let me briefly introduce him. Associate Prof. Dr. Azman Muhammad Noor is currently a senior lecturer at International Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance in our beloved university, International Institute of University Malaysia. He completed his degree in Islamic law in 1997 at Islamic University of Medina in Saudi. He did his master in Mu'amalat, Islamic law and transaction in 2001 at Department of Fiqh and Usul Fiqh at our university. He obtained his PhD in Islamic law in 2005 at University of Edinburgh, Scotland. And he has been a member of Fatwa Committee, Mufti Office of Paris since 2016. And previously he worked as a in different administrative positions, head of department at Department of Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh, at College of Islamic Liberal Knowledge and Human Sciences. And also he was a Deputy Dean for Academic and Student Affairs at International Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Azman to start his sharing points. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Our beloved chairperson, Dr. Akram, distinguished speakers, Dr. Prof. Walid, and my Sheikh, Sheikh Tahir, Professor Tahir Misawi, and also Dr. Abdul Razak, my colleague Dr. Abdul Razak, and all the participants for today's webinar. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to have online seminar. And also I'd like to thank the organizer for inviting me to share my opinions and my thoughts on the topics. I think most of the topics, most of the issues already covered by our beloved and distinguished professors and also previous speakers. I just would like to add some points about the Maqasid, about the which one should be prioritized. I think Dr. Prof. Walid already mentioned, and also the previous speakers already mentioned about number one, we have to protect our deen, Hifzul Deen, and then we have Hifzul Nafs, the protection of life. It is quite interesting when it comes to COVID-19 issues. There has been some questions from the public. Why do you close down the mosque? Why don't you allow us to come to do the Jum'ah and the Jama'ah prayers? We should actually uphold that in the sense of protection of religion. We should allow the Muslims to go to the mosque to attend the congregational prayers. But this is quite interesting because in the beginning, it was a shock during the first outbreak of the pandemic by the beginning of, in Malaysia, especially by March, by the first quarter of this year. And it is a shock. And later on, we heard fatwas from the scholars do not allow the Muslims to attend the congregation prayers because of the COVID-19. The virus can easily be spread. Can easily be spreaded, okay, through the congregations. So we have to keep social distancing. So we come across a new terminologies like social distancing because of this COVID-19. So there are many things which we never knew before. But my point is about which one should be prioritized. So Sheikh, one of the scholars of the Maqasid Hierarchy, which is from Morocco, who is based in Qatar, and he used to come here, give talks, and he said that there is nothing to do with the prioritizing religion upon life. When it comes to attending Jum'ah prayers, because this is, harming your life, endangering your life. So in this case, we have to avoid anything which can endanger our life or which put our life in danger. So in other words, in order to perform the religious obligations, religious rituals, we have to, number one, we have to remain healthy. We have to remain healthy, and we have to be alive. Because otherwise we cannot perform the religious duties. So religious duties, whether it is 5 daily prayers, whether it is Hajj, whether it is fasting in the month of Ramadan, or other religious duties, when we want to perform it, it actually rests on the life, our life. So in other words, what is very, very important is to keep ourselves healthy, to try to avoid as much as we can any means which can lead to the spread of the virus, because by having a healthy life, this can help us to perform our religious duties better. So it is quite interesting in discussion in discussing the priorities among those essentials, among those daruriyats. I think my Sheikh can correct me, Prof. Tahim Musawi, about this. I think there were dispute among the scholars whether they want to put life on top or they put religion on the top. But most of the scholars agree that we put religion on the top. But it depends on how we interpret it, how we comprehend it. Because definitely when we put religion on the top, it can also mean that there are other ways, other proactive means, ways, positive means, and ways of establishing and also of spreading our religion, sharing and also doing da'wah, how to make sure our religion is practiced, to put into practice by da'wah, by having classes, by having Quranic classes, and so on and so forth. And we observe that even though we managed to have online classes, definitely it's not similar, it's not the same. The effect is so severe that in the last exam, in the last sem, I noticed that many of my students couldn't answer the questions correctly because we didn't have face-to-face communication, and online communication is totally different. But we have no other choice. We have no other choice because we have to do this. We have to do this. We have to continue doing this. Of course, we take all the precautions, but we have to think positively. We have to work hard. We should never give up. Okay, this is the Muslims' attitude. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. In the Holy Quran, Allah says, with the difficulty there is an ease. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Allah reiterates in the Holy Quran, with all difficulties, there will be an ease. So we should be optimistic about this. Another point which I would like to share is about the al-maslaha al-aamah muqaddamah ala al-maslaha al-khassa. So we also have another legal maxim which is also in relation to the maslaha, which is in relation to the maqasid, the interest, the human interest. The human interest which should we preserve or we should give priority to? Is it the public one or is it the individual one? Interestingly, as we heard from the previous speakers, that this crisis, this pandemic caused also economic crisis, global economic crisis, and worse yet to come, because of the international trade. And recently, yesterday in the UK, there is a new wave of COVID-19, a new they call it a new strain of virus. And they already they just do again the lockdown, and then they stop all the flights from and to the UK, and we can imagine I mean how long this will take, but we have to think positively. And in the light of that maslaha amma muqaddama ala maslaha khassa, the authority, the governments should definitely take into consideration what serves the public interest more than the individual interest. Recently, we have in Malaysia, for example, a moratorium for the for the banks, for the borrowers. They have payment holidays for 6 months, and the thing is, some people want to have more, to have the extension. This is quite interesting because for the first 6 months, the government introduced automatic moratorium. By default, everyone gets the moratorium, but later on, they asked to have more. Interestingly, the industry, Islamic banking, for example, they suffer. because Islamic banks are not like conventional banks. Conventional banks, of course, they can give you payment holidays, but they can charge you interest. But also they also suffer in terms of collections, because they have to match between the asset and the liabilities for that financial year. And interestingly, most of the bankers they cannot tolerate more moratorium. And interestingly, the regulated bank, central bank, only allow the moratorium for the genuine cases, not for the ordinary cases. So the borrowers who really suffer, who lose their jobs, for example, they can prove their situations, and then they can get the extension of the moratorium. But not all individuals, not all the government, not all the borrowers, especially government servants or those who are not affected by the virus to get the moratorium. Because it is quite interesting. Some people, they are talking about moratorium, but actually moratorium in terms of making payment to the loan they took, to the debt that they have took, but they prefer. Some of them, they say, some of them, they are reluctant to pay even yesterday. They borrowed today, yesterday, they're reluctant to pay back the money. Interestingly, some of them, they managed to buy gold. They go to the many jewelry shops, and they are buying gold. And even I myself receive a lot of questions, and at the Fatwa Council, we also discuss about buying gold online. People have money. People want to do a transaction. They want to buy gold. And recently, we know that the price of gold went up, and people were interested to buy gold. And very funny, at the same time, some of them are reluctant to pay the debts. So in this light, the public's interest should be given priority. Like, until now, we're not allowed to travel, for example. Like, until now, there's still MCO practice, like with the control measures and many other measures taken, which definitely, doesn't give us freedom to move around, doesn't give us comfortability, for example, to do transactions and to do things. Many things we have to do online, but still, in the light of the maslahah al-amah, the priority should be given to the public interest. And the same with that, moratorium shouldn't be extended, because many banks will suffer and will go bankrupt. Because they couldn't do the collection, while at the same time they have to spend a lot of money for the expenses to pay the dividend, and also to pay the salary for their workers and the staff. And another point which I'd like to share with you is there are some opportunities. Of course, many are suffering, but there are opportunities. Al-Mutanabi say, Al-Mutanabi, I think most of us are aware about Al-Mutanabi, a very famous Arab poet. He said, "Wa masaibu qaum inda qaumi fawaidu." So he said the calamity of a nation is actually a good opportunity for another nation. And a calamity, a trial for a group of people is actually a privilege and also an opportunity for other people. So some of the industries, some sectors and segments of the industry definitely suffer, like our brother, like our professors mentioned just now. Some sectors were severely suffering, but some sectors like digital, digital and also e-commerce, for example, most people are preferring to do things online, and things becomes digitalized. Everything they want to do digital on the digital basis. And we use emails more than typical mails, and we don't print so much papers now. Everything, even signature, we do digital signature. For some of us, of course, we cannot catch up with the latest development. But there are opportunities. Some people who are not ready for these challenges, they will be left behind. So we sometimes, even the pilots, I think you read about in the news, the pilots, because the flights cannot fly anymore. So they change, they become, they operate restaurants, for example. So this is the survival skill, which I think we shouldn't abandon. In this era, in all situations, we shouldn't abandon the survival skill. The survival skills means that even though you are well trained in one field, but you have to do, you have to be multitasking. You should be able to adjust yourself to do something else for your survival. So, this is also another area, another skill that we have to teach our children and also our students to be aware that not only the area of their specialization, what they are doing can help them for their earnings, but there are other means we can help them for their earnings. And definitely, if we are ready for that, and definitely we should. Our attitude, we should remain optimistic, and our attitude that we should always expect good things, and we should expect, all these trials and calamities are actually the blessings in disguise, which actually should be a lesson for us, lesson learned for us, so that we have times then we have to rethink about our situation. That maybe we have been far away from Allah. We want to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have been far away from our family members now. What we have to plan anew. We have to plan anew about our relation with Allah. We have to plan anew about our way of life. We have to plan anew about our future. So this actually give us an opportunity and a lesson so that we can learn, we can ponder. We can think for the betterments. And another thing which we learn from this COVID, that there is no difference between human beings. There is no superpower, no rich, no poor. All can be affected by the disease. No colors, no races. They are all equal. They are all equal in facing this challenge and also this calamity. So actually, we are one as human beings everywhere. Wherever you are, in which country you're living, we are facing the same, and there are many things which we are sharing in common. And definitely, we as Muslims, in the light of Maqasid of Shariah, we should be ready, and we should have a guideline how to deal with this and how to overcome this, inshallah, in the near future. So with that, I end my presentation. Jazakumullah khairan kathiran wa barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osman, for this interesting sharing points, how to prioritize different issues which relate to the COVID-19. Actually, a few questions came to my mind to the speakers, but let me prioritize the questions raised by different audience in the chat area. And we also can allow verbal questions if anybody would like to ask a question verbally, may unmute the mic and ask a question. But let me just read a few questions raised in the chat area. The one question to Prof. Walid. The question is, can this Maqasidic framework be used to ensure that the post-COVID world is marked by the closer relationship between science and religion? During a pandemic, there was a trend to separate religion and science. Of course, the questions give an example in Indonesia, but this is basically the questions. So, Prof. Walid, okay, please unmute. Yeah, unmute your mic, please.
Thank you very much. I think this is an interesting question, and also reply might be not really accommodating here. But just let me put a few quick issues. Number one, there is a perception that there is a separation between religion and science, and this perception, unfortunately, within Islam doesn't exist. And many people who talk or claim to say scientific thinking is away from religion, I'm sorry to say, they do not understand what is scientific thinking and what is scientific thinking is based on. Interestingly, at the same time that some maybe voices in Muslim world talking about the prayers area are very important for the social support and other things, and some people will claim that this is against science. I have in front of me a statistics that was done in April 2020 about how many countries in Europe closed down churches and how many did not close. Actually, majority didn't close. Majority didn't close. They put some SOPs and some regulation to do this. And of course, all of us remember the statement by President Trump, the President of the United States, when he said, "How come I close worship places where we need God now?" So I think the claim of being unscientific or something like this, sometimes people maybe don't understand what is scientific and what's not scientific. And as Dr. Azman mentioned, in fact, people in the time of crisis all over, across religion, not only in Islam, across religion, they will come closer to their Lord. So this one is, the problem is the understanding of what is science and what is religion. And this is a long discussion. But this is just a simple comment on this issue.
Thank you very much, Prof. There is another question, but not directed to any speaker. So the question related to economy, that's why I would like Dr. Azman to respond, and anybody else will come to respond. Which one should be prioritized, economy or health? Both of which come under Maqasidic framework. So, Dr. Azman, do you want?
Yes, economy and health. Of course, we have economy which is related to hifdhul mal, the preservation of wealth. And another one is the health. Of course, wealth and health. Okay, wealth and health. So which one should be prioritized? Definitely, I mean, I think it is agreed by most of the scholars that we should prioritize health over wealth. We should prioritize health over wealth, because health is related to your life. The religion, our religion and other religions definitely try to protect human life. And we, in Islam especially, we have our protection of life to be prioritized over the economics. If you have money but you're not healthy, for example, what is the point? If you have, I mean, this is quite interesting. Some people thought that, some people wish that he becomes rich, but we don't know, for example, what Allah has taken from him. Maybe he is sick. He spends so much money. He has so much money for the medications. Like I think many of us know about the very popular person, Shoemaker. He was top in the car race. Michael Schumacher. I think he's suffering, and just to take a lesson, he spent so much, almost all of his money, but he's still unconscious. To regain the consciousness, the family members spend all his wealth. So this is an example. But in general, being health is actually a wealth given by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. A person who is healthy, he is not aware about the blessings. But when he falls sick, or someone who is sick, someone who is sick will definitely envy or will wish that I would prefer that I become healthier, or I become healthy just like that person. And I'm willing to pay money. But I think in the beginning of Wuhan, beginning of COVID-19 in China during the lockdown, they are throwing money from the windows because they said, I can't use my money. And we heard in many situations where rich people, they want to buy their life, but they cannot. They have all the money, but the money cannot help them to cure their cancer, for example. Cannot help them to cure their sickness. So we do not deny that the importance of the economy, but definitely in some circumstances, those who are living the countryside, for example, they don't rely so much on others. They rely on themselves. But for those who rely on so much on others, definitely this will affect them, which definitely will contribute also to their health care. I mean, the poor economic situation can also contribute to the health care. But when in general, when it comes to prioritize which one should be prioritized, in general, we can say that health should be prioritized over the economics, over the wealth. Allah.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this for answering this question. So, حفظ النفس before حفظ المال. Okay, so another question for Prof. Taher. Can we position Maqasid as an alternative model in constructing the post-COVID world order? It is different, for example, from the model ordered by the current capitalist order, for example, and so on. So this is basically the question. Prof. Taher, are you with us?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Your camera is, yeah, okay, please.
Actually, I have gone through the chats and I have seen some questions. Some of them are directly addressed to me and others may be relevant. So let me just make some comments. And I would start from what my dear Sheikh and colleague Dr. Azman ended with, relating to the question about what to prioritize, health or wealth. We have to be clear about some fundamental thing. Wealth and money is not an end in itself. Whatever property we have, whatever wealth we have, whatever we work for to gain money and to accumulate wealth is not an end in itself. It is just a means to serve and satisfy the needs of human beings. So human beings, their need is not to accumulate money, but to use money for purposes that are related to their life, to their physical life, to their mental life, to their society, to their families, to the future generations. And of course, it will be very mad if people in such circumstances of pandemic where everybody are affected and many have lost their jobs, have lost their incomes, and many are already homeless, and people think about making money or preserving the wealth they have. I think that will be a kind of foolishness. It's not really, and beyond humanity. If we look to the Quran does not ask us to make money because by nature, by our instincts, we make money, just like any other. This is part of, but always it talks to us about how to spend money, where to spend money. So money has to be spent, to be used. And therefore, those people who have made money, who have become rich, who have become tycoons, they, whether in our societies or human, they made that because of other people, because of the people who consume their products, because of the people who work for them, because the people who think for them. Were it not so, we should do away with this Qarun mentality. This is Qarun mentality when he said, إنما أوتيت على علم علمي. I made this money, this wealth because I am smart. That's not the reason. You are indebted to the society, to the people, to the families, to the schools, to whatever for making. Were it not for these consumers, whether they consume your products, your services, you will not be that rich. So remember, those who have tycoons, or millionaires, multimillionaires, and whoever, they should remember that they are indebted to the rest of the society, to the rest of mankind. Of course, now we are talking about the world order. We are about the centers and the periphery, those countries that are leading the world in terms of economy and dominating the economic system of the world. They did not become such just out of their own local resources, national resources, but because they have been plundering the resources of other nations throughout the world. So I think that's why I was talking about radical reflection, radical kind of thinking. If Maqasid does not really enable us to think in such a radical manner and open a new horizon about how to think on human problems, on social problems, on mankind's destiny and future, I don't think that we will be really giving Maqasid its due value, its due significance, because it's, as I understand it at least, and of course this is not just my view, others have been expressing such views, whether from the economic point of view or otherwise. Maqasid should give us a totally different set of mind, how to think about. And here, of course, I think this the question about an alternative. The question came from Nuruddin. I totally agree with you, because the dominating capitalistic system has actually damaged the humanity, it has damaged the environment, it has damaged the people, nations, plundered the wealth, and actually because there is no thinking about future generations. They are thinking about how to just accumulate millions and millions and millions. And in our societies, claiming that we are Muslims, people, as I think Prof. Azman mentioned, who now think about buying gold and buying this and that, while other people don't find their dairy food, their breakfast. I think that's inhuman. This takes us beyond humanity. In that sense, I understand Maqasid. That's why I was calling for trying to think about developing a research program, or at least a research project, bringing people from different disciplines together so that we can try to work out a kind of a new paradigm, a different paradigm. Of course, it's not going to be in the blink of an eye to change the situation, but I think the first thing is that we need to have the awareness that there is dire need for Muslims as such, and for the rest of the world, to think in a different manner, from a different perspective, to develop a new paradigm. And paradigms usually, by the way, that make a difference in the human history, they come in times of crisis. I think this is a crisis that has gone worldwide, that has been global. Daily people are suffering the same thing, facing the same problem. And if in such crisis, this time of trials, human beings don't come to their senses, don't learn the lesson, as it's not a matter of just bringing religion to science or science to religion. It's about how to really see reality of mankind, the condition of mankind in its multi-dimensional nature. I think in that way, perhaps, and of course, this will take time, but it needs perseverance and commitment and strong will. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Actually, there is the point that you raised about the research project. There is another question also to you about using Maqasid to lend justification for the relevance of certain practices or discipline, but applying Maqasid as a holistic framework. This is a very important. So the question is, what will be the most pressing and immediate Maqasidic approach in dealing with COVID-19 pandemic? Which area of research would be suggested?
I think first, perhaps we need to look who are the victims, who are the social groups in our society that are most affected by this thing, families and people, workers and students. There are actually multiple kinds of. So I think this should be given priority, because you cannot talk about developing and growing if you are not able to save someone from hunger, from poverty, from this and that, from medical, serious medical health trouble, etc. So I think this, and of course this also, as I said, needs the combination of different people from different backgrounds, right from the neighborhood to the wider locality society. So I think that because not everybody are affected in the same way. People who are well off, who have some kind of safety in their economic and financial life, they don't need such priority. I think that's part of and this kind of emergency. So you need to tackle such kind of emergencies. And of course, this is the global situation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. There is another question for Prof. Abdul Razzaq. Can you explain the difference between the preservation criteria in the Maqasid framework and the Western framework in the context of handling COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you very much, Prof. Akram. I think the question that was raised by our, friend there, Nuruddin, addresses or touches a very deep and lengthy topic. If we want to highlight, the discussions that are going on, on the topic of the connection, between nadariyatul manfa'a fil akhlaq and the concept of al-maslaha, as explained and, presented in the study of Maqasid, topics, it's very wide and very deep. Of course, we don't have much time, but I would like to comment, and I'm now, hoping Prof. Tahir and others will always be there, to correct. It's like, in this, when it comes to, in a very short statement, when it comes to utilitarian or utilitarianism or nadariyatul manfa'a fil akhlaq, generally promotes the concept of pain and pleasure in relation to, the number, of people who are, happy with the pain and pleasure, whereby for them, there are two intrinsic values in life, pain and pleasure. So whatever that increases our pain is morally, immoral or unacceptable for them. Whatever that reduces our pain is moral. Whatever that increases our pleasure is moral. Whatever that reduces our, pleasure is immoral. It's just, I know the details are so deep, but it's just to put it in a nutshell, in a very concise statement. And then putting that for them, in order to measure, they said that here is like what? The biggest number or the majority. In other words, the number matters. There is a number game. So if you want to say something is morally good, then you just increase, the people who are, enjoying or having pleasure with it. If you want to say something is morally bad, then you decrease the people who are, supporting it, or increase the people who hates it. So for them, pain and pleasure in relation to number, that is what, and majority and minority here, there is a number going on with the value system for them, the pleasure, all apart. But in Islam, that is not the case. That's not the case. In Islam, I think I would like to ask Brother Nuruddin and others to see the concept of maslaha and how the fuqaha addressed, especially when Muslim jurists classify the concept of maslaha into two, or gains, put in that way, the gains into three, sorry, not two. So they have what, in the Islamic tradition, we have, the first category of the concept of maslaha is al-maslaha al-mu'tabara wal-maslaha al-mulghah. second, category. The third category is al-masalih al-mursala. So basically, al-maslaha, what do you call al-mu'tabara, or the accredited gains, or the acceptable or the approved gain, is the gain that is being approved by the Sharia, in line with the Sharia. So marriage, for example, you enjoy, family relationship, family intimacy, or marriage, relationship, fine. But because Sharia, permitted it, therefore, whatever that, within the marriage, these two individuals enjoys is acceptable. Business, and then you conduct a business, and then you gain, profit, fine. So al-masalih in Islam, in that sense, the first category of maslaha is the approved maslaha. As long as the Sharia permitted it, in line with the Maqasid Sharia, is welcomed. That gain is accepted, approved, accredited, allowed. But the second category is al-maslaha al-mulghah, or discredited maslaha, or disapproved maslaha, or not allowed maslaha, if you put it in that way. It's like rejected or refused. Why? Because it harms maybe the life, or it harms the healthy, or it harms the honor and dignity. And therefore, here you have, like, if you go for quick comparison, sexual relationship in marriage, in marital life, or in marriage is permissible in Islam, accredited maslaha. But sexual relationship in prostitution is not permitted, not permitted. So here you have a sexual relationship that is prohibited. Why? Because it dishonors the individual, it harms the future generation, it harms the fabrics of the society, therefore discredited. And here you have a sexual relationship that is permitted on the other side. Why? Because it's in line within Maqasid Sharia of life, growth or reproduction, and the honor and dignity and so forth, right? So here you have two types of gains: gain that is not permissible in the Sharia, and gains that are permissible in the Sharia. So as you can see here, and then the third category is al-masalih al-musara, which is open ticket, for the human life to achieve. So as you can see, when we talk about gains in Islam, or profit or benefits, is principle guided. That's my conclusion. It's a principle guided. But in utilitarian ethics, we have, the issue of pain and pleasure in relation to number. How many people are supporting it? Then, the issue for them is acceptable. So what I would like to say here is, when it comes to the concept of, Maqasid Sharia and the categories or the hierarchy of masalih, as explained it beautifully and rightly by Muslim jurists, in Islam, the masalih is principle guided. The gains are guided by the principles of the Sharia. Therefore, there are certain gains that are not acceptable, and there are certain gains that are welcomed and approved. And based on that, all the laws are being classified. But when it comes to utilitarian ethics is a different issue. It's not principle guided. Although I know certain people, like, Swat Mill, they always claim, that there is a, they call, what do you call it, special utilitarian ethics and general utilitarian. The details are a bit deep, but they claim that they are principles, but those principles are not the principles that the Sharia is talking about. So the two concepts are totally different. Although they, in the outward, they look, they have to have some similarities here and there, but they are totally different.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Razak. I think there are a lot of comments in the chat. Maybe I can allow one or two verbal questions. Here we have Dr. Muhammad Aslam, if you would like to unmute and ask your question. And Ustaza Halima, you wrote a few comments. If you would like to address your question to any of the speaker, please unmute your mic, or anybody else would like to ask the question verbally, please unmute your mic and ask. Maybe you can allow one or two only before we close. Okay, so it seems that no any question. So I think we reach to the end of the session.
I think it's a lunch time and everyone is waiting for.
Yeah. For closing remark from all speakers, let us start from Prof. Walid. Just a few words, conclusion.
Okay, thank you very much for this nice, interesting discussion. It was a pleasure also to meet our colleagues, Prof. Tahir, Dr. Azman, and also Dr. Abdulrazak. I think the concluding remarks is there is a big room for using Maqasid Sharia, and there is a lot of things need to be discussed, need to be studied. Priority issues, as mentioned by many, all of us, almost, and also the bigger framework for Maqasid Sharia, as mentioned by also Prof. Misawi. So I think it's a motivation for all researchers, whoever is attending this from research background. You have a lot on your plates. You try to work it out. And also it's a big challenge for us to present these excellent Islamic concepts for the public good of humanity. I think this is a time that we need to look into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Walid. Prof. Tahir?
Yeah. I concur totally with Prof. Walid on what he has said regarding that actually today's forum actually has put us in front of many problems rather than getting us ready-made solutions. And I think this is an important to start with thinking and thinking in a wider manner, in a more holistic manner. I still want to reiterate my point that we are in dire need for a comprehensive approach on research and research that are related to Sharia. And I think Maqasid Sharia, if properly understood and properly, of course, its implications and bearings are worked out in a sound manner, because let me be actually frank, there is a lot of abuse and misuse of Maqasid that has been going around, and I think we need to develop at least put the seeds of a new trend of scholarship, bringing people from different disciplines together in order to think comprehensively. And as Dr. Hashi said, on norm-based, because Maqasid gives us actually a normative framework. And this normative framework is important because science, people now are acknowledging that when they left values and norms behind and just make science its own arbiter, then and technology its own arbiter. The measure should be actually beyond and should have a more authoritative framework, not just the actor himself be the norm. I think if we do that, we can, inshallah, open a new way of development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Prof. Tahir, do you agree with the fatwa just released by the Assembly of Muslim Justice of America by the Fatwa Committee? How do you read the fatwa?
Fatwa by
the vaccine?
Yeah, of course, the fatwa and the mufti has to give a practical solution. Because of course it is not binding, as you know, fatwa is not binding, but these people, they try to reflect on the problem and of course provide a solution from what is available. They are not in a position to invent solutions. So based on their assessment, they gave that fatwa, and I think if others have a better perspective and better alternative, they should come up with it. So I cannot blame them and just be critical of them because but I think what they did is to advise, and of course it's ijtihad, and ijtihad can be wrong or false depending on the information available, and I think they should be at least thanked for what they have done. Of course, they don't have the full knowledge of everything. That's why I am still insisting that it's not a matter of the faqih or the jurist to resolve the problems, because it has to do with reality, understanding reality. And this, you need the experts in the different fields. So if we do that, we can do good service to Maqasid Shariah, to science, and to humanity.
Thank you very much, Prof. So now let me move to Dr. Abdulrazak Hashi, concluded remarks.
Thank you very much, Prof. Akram, for I think yeah, Prof. Tahir and Prof. Walid have beautifully and rightly concluded. But if I may just add one more, a point just to conquer of what they have said. To look at in like a helicopter view of the Islamic teaching, you need to have a bigger picture. One of the key messages of the Quran is, rahmatan lil alameen, which we always cite here in IIUM and of course, across the academia in the Muslim world, that Islam has been, revealed to us as a rahmatan, lil alameen, and the whole mission of the Prophet is to spread, mercy to everyone. So today, I think we need to see that one because of this pandemic. Today, whether we like or not, there is a suffering in the world, in terms of mental suffering, in terms of economic suffering, in terms of what do you call, one of the prevalent sufferings that we notice is the mental suffering, whereby the suicide, the rate of the suicides are increasing as a result of this pandemic. They have mentioned even a number of people that they went to the hospital and then they wanted to go screening, not in this part of the world, but I think in some other parts, that when they were screened for COVID-19, whether they are positive or negative, before the result was announced, they committed suicide because they thought that they already have COVID-19 and therefore they lost the confidence and hope. So you can see the despair and hopelessness that are everywhere today in around the world because of the COVID-19. So I think one of the practice, or one of the, how do I say, to bring down the concept of rahmah from only a conceptual topic into the real life, is to spread as Prof. Walid rightly mentioned, the concept of iman, what do you call, confidence, taqwa, tawakkul, and so forth. Not because we want to do tawakkul ala Allah and believe in Allah because we are weak. No, because our researchers are doing the relevant research in the different area of science to identify the proper vaccination for this pandemic. But in the meantime, we need to deal with the mental challenges that are there, as a result of COVID-19. So I think institutions like IIUM and other Muslim institutions today, they have a greater responsibility of, shouldering the responsibility of showing, rahmah in terms of providing the right teaching to everyone. Thank you very much. Prof. Akram, I think you are muted.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulrazak. So, Dr. Azman.
Okay, thank you very much again to Dr. Akram. To summarize or to conclude our discussion today, I would like to reiterate, number one, that we have to enhance the SOP of going to the masjid for the Jama'ah and Jum'ah prayer. This is actually in line with the preservation of religion. And also for the other means of teachings like Quranic classes and so on and so forth, with the new SOP, with the strict adherence to the SOP and with the new norms, we notice that how this affect us so much in terms of shi'ar, to show to bring into life the practice, the shi'ar of our religion. And another one, I would also like to encourage to indulge to explore more on the social financing, more on the Islamic social financing, like wakaf, like zakat, like giving sadaqah, charity, and also qardha hasan, to humanize. Some of the banks now offering their service, as they call it, humanizing financial service. But we want them to do more, to contribute more, and we want all the sectors and also the institutions and also the individuals to play their role in order to face this challenge. As Prof. Misawi said just now, at this crisis, during this crisis, this very time, we need to do our best to have our sympathy, and also to extend our help and our aid to the needy, the poor, the cliques who also suffer from losing jobs, and so on and so forth. So it is actually a chance for us, a platform that we should also explore to overcome and also to some extent to solve the problems because of the crisis, especially economic problems where people are suffering. Many are suffering. Many are affected by this crisis. How and what platform? And of course, in Islam we have those means sadaqah, we have zakat, and we have wakaf, and we have also fanadhiratun ila maisarah. Those who cannot afford to repay their debt, we should give them more time in order for them to repay the debt. With that, I end my session. Jazakumullah khairan kathiran again to Centris and to all the colleagues, because I also benefit from our distinguished speakers on the topic today about Maqasid Shariah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Brother Chairman.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, just a request.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just can we be provided with the link for the record of this meeting, so we can post it in whatever other forms or platforms, so it can reach to as many people as possible?
Yes, Prof. Actually, it's recorded as well as a live session in Facebook. So I will provide you the link in Facebook, so you can send it to anyone.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, all of you. And we reach to the end of the session. I would like to thank everyone here for joining us for this virtual forum. And I would like to thank our speakers of today, Professor Dr. Walid Farid and Professor Dr. Muhammad Al-Tahir Al-Misawi, and Associate Prof. Dr. Abdul Razak Hashi, Associate Dr. Azman bin Muhammad Noor. And I'd like to thank all audience for remaining with us until the end of the session. And inshallah, we meet again in next forum. Jazakumullah khair. We end officially with Tasbih al-Kafara.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.